Can We Afford the Green New Deal? By Yeva Nersisyan and Randall Wray. Other sources of inflationary pressures. Many fear that if the costs of medical care are shifted to the government, that creates a large windfall for both employees and employers, who no longer must pay health insurance premiums, causing inflation. Employers would face substantially reduced labor costs as Medicare for All replaces private insurance plans. For instance, in 2017, employers paid a median of about $13,000 in premiums per worker for an employer-based family coverage plan. Footnote 14. In 2010, the median employer cost of healthcare was 12.8% of payroll. Claxton and D'Amico, 2011. In 2017, employers paid about 70% of the family plan coverage's cost, while workers paid about 30%. KFF 2017. End footnote. It is difficult to know how employers would react to the elimination of healthcare costs. If unions were strong, they might be able to induce employers to offer other kinds of benefits or to raise wages, which would increase incomes and thus consumption. Some have argued that employers would oppose the movement to Medicare for All because they use good healthcare coverage as a recruiting device, so offering other kinds of benefits would be an option. We think that in the current environment, most of the savings will be retained by employers, although some might indeed offer longer vacations, shorter work weeks, or childcare as attractive benefits. Perhaps the savings would show up as profits to be consumed by owners or highly paid executives, invested in new plant and equipment, or simply saved and perhaps used to stock buybacks that push equities prices ever higher. If this windfall is spent, it would absorb resources, and hence our estimates of the resources released by Medicare for All would be overstated. We think that is highly unlikely. When oil or other input prices rise, raising firms' costs, their spending on inputs rises, and there is some pressure on inflation. When input prices fall, their spending on inputs falls. The pressure on aggregate prices is downward when production costs fall. We suggest that the main effect of removing healthcare costs from employer costs will be deflationary, not inflationary. We believe U.S. employers will use the savings to make their production more competitive, domestically and internationally, by lowering prices. However, as workers' spending on healthcare premiums falls and take-home pay rises, some portion of this can go to increased consumption. Certainly, workers will use some of that to raise their consumption, but they can also reduce debt and increase saving. Still, there could be some increased consumer demand and some pressure on inflation.